Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Story Slam. We are so blessed to have storytellers tonight sharing their take on wellness. And I'd like to just thank our co-hosts tonight, Dr. Lauren Block with Northwell Health and Zucker School of Medicine. So thank you for helping us and coordinating this presentation. So without further ado, we're going to get started. We have first up Dr. Puthiamadam.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. So here's my story on wellness. Do not judge my wellness on your idea of physical fitness, for indeed my BMI might not be pleasing to your eye, but I have found a way to see wellness as a multidimensional entity, encompassing the physical, the mental, the spiritual, all a journey, the proverbial mind, body, and soul. I used to seek perfection. I'd always wanted to be the perfect student, the perfect daughter, the perfect wife, the perfect mother, and the perfect doctor. In the end, I found seeking perfection meant a diminished well-being. So today I have embraced some other P's. I have embraced purpose in all things I do. I've come to realize that money comes and goes, but my time does not. And so I ensure my time reflects my values. The early morning I spend in prayer before the day becomes crazy, and I give thanks for having another day in which to live this life. I've worked in the same practice for the past 20 years, an underserved FQHC where most providers have not lasted more than 5 years. But I remain. What I have lost in revenue and promotion, I have gained in the long-standing relationship with my patients. As many of my patients tell me, my relationship with them has lasted more than most marriages. I have outsourced all things that do not serve my purpose. And so I have a scribe and have come to accept that having someone help clean the house makes me no less of a wife or a mother. In fact, it has given me more time to be with the people I love instead of nagging and cajoling them to do the things I want. Having never been one to exercise, I have found a class at 5:30 in the morning with busy women, a CrossFit class. I am not the fastest, nor am I the strongest, and I am surprised I survived many of the workouts. But I know every day I try, and this has led to my second P, persistence. I have come to realize that I'm a lifelong learner. I realize that things change all the time. Our approach to pain, our chronic disease management, and now our motivational interviewing. I have learned to be patient and advocate for what I want, my last P. And knowing that things will come with time. I've stopped comparison of my journey, for I've noticed that comparison is the thief of joy. Instead, I have learned to love and accept all those around me. And that includes teen tantrums, collegial confusion, and marital mishaps, giving all the benefit of the doubt, making sure that my faith is greater than my fears. And in this, I have become well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Puthiamadam. I could learn something from you about time because I realized how fast I was speaking to get through the time. So thank you for reminding us the importance of it and the joy in every time. I just want to see if Dr. Eshrat was able to join. If you were able to join, please unmute and let me know. All right. Dr. Saklivel, you are up.
Hi, all. It's a pleasure to see you all. And the title of my story today is Illness to Wellness with a Spiritual Insight. And as healthcare professionals, we play a very pivotal part in the well-being of our patients. And when faced with our own sickness, we tend to learn some lessons and derive strength that is of paramount importance in helping our patients towards reaching their own wellness goals. So with this in mind, I would like to share a very personal story. And I battled with an illness, in layman terms, is a barren woman with an ICD code of N79.9. And I grew up in a culture where barren women were considered to be a curse by the gods. They were rejected by the society in different levels, uh, to the extent that in some villages, men were entitled to marry other women if their wives could not bear children. So this cultural mindset is goes across the continent. Even though I was in America, I did face those kind of rejections by well-meaning, educated friends and relatives. So, with going to endless visits to my OBGYN with my loving husband, who was very patient, and taking different treatments, looking towards holistic medicine in addition to traditional medicine, trying Eastern medicine, fitness, everything, because I had an element of PCOD as well, but there was no baby in sight. And I also like to add one more, a short story of one of my friends. And she was a physician too in the States. And it's a very shameful thing to, even share that her father-in-law used to ask her every month if she was getting her periods, just to make sure she was going to get pregnant or not. So she used to cry to me. So this is something that, not to undermine any culture, but just to highlight how barren women, are rejected, and they silently suffer in many parts of the Eastern world, which maybe the West is not that aware of. So, so I was very determined to be a mom. I was very desperate to be a mom. I was determined to find a cure for my curse. I wanted to end this curse because, it carried a stigma along with that. And this led me to embark on a spiritual journey to, find how to become a mom. And so I ended up reading the Bible. I found, with soul searching, with divine help, I came across the Bible, and I started reading the Bible. And one of the verses that caught my attention was, "There is no barren woman in the land." So this verse was, I got attracted to this verse, and I believed the verse. And so I started to believe that, and I prayed that I would become a mom. And the scriptures also shed light on a topic that said that human is made up of a body, soul, and a spirit, and our soul is a seat of mind, will, and emotions. And anxiety and depression and hatred, unforgiveness, bitterness can affect the body in different ways, and so is love, joy, forgiveness, and kindness can affect the human body. And we all know that many of our patients are not able to overcome their addictions, not because they don't want to, but they don't have the power to do that. And so when the body and the soul and the spirit are interlinked with each other in a harmonious phase, they will be able to overcome that addictions. So with this wellness paradigm, I felt that I got connected to the right spiritual force. So that kind of took care of the emotions, and that helped me to heal my womb, and I was able to bear children of my own. Not that, that we have to have our children of our own, but that was something that I dreamed of. So I could share joyfully that I am a mother of 2 children now. So in my approach is, wellness is something inside out and not really outside in. So, I want to take this message across to my colleagues, my patients, to let them know that, it's possible that they can receive inner healing, and that can show in their body outside. So this is my approach to wellness, and I hope you enjoyed hearing my story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saktivel, and congratulations. And thank you for sharing your journey and how you found that grounding from within. That's really powerful. Dr. Macias.
Okay. This is my first story slam. Wasn't sure exactly how it goes, but here's my take on it. So Oh, she's gone. Okay, I remember you said you weren't going to be there. Being well is actually multifaceted. And the way I'm going to explain this is basically through a story of one of my patients. I'm going to call her Miss Martina, and I'm going to call this Pressure Me No More. And now, Miss Martina was this lady in her 40s who actually had been going to so many doctors already in the clinic, been sent to the emergency room over and over again, given blood pressure pills, and she never took anything. So the medical assistant says to me, listen, Miss Martinez here, you're one of the new doctors, you're going to be her doctor now. Good luck. Should I just call 911? Because this is what everyone else does. So when she comes into my room, the first thing I want to do is like what I always do. Like, are you crazy? Like, what do you mean you don't take your medication? You could get a heart attack, you could get a stroke. Like, this was my impulse. And then I remembered, you know, this lady probably has heard this 30 times already. The same thing I wanted to say. I said, I have to dig deeper. I said, is her anger, because when she came in, she was angry. I said, is her anger affecting her blood pressure, or is her blood pressure getting her angry? I said, I knew that the social aspect of her was okay. She had a job, she was an educated woman, so she knew everything she was being explained. It wasn't like she didn't understand. Okay, so that part was okay. So now I was left with her psychological well-being, her emotional well-being, which crosses into her spiritual well-being, as was mentioned before. And now the problem, her high blood pressure. So I'm sitting there with her and she is just angry. And I'm like, okay, how do I go about this? And something inside me said, ask this woman about her mother. Don't ask me where that came from. I don't know, sixth sense. And I said to her, Miss Martina, please tell me about your mother. And she said, what the F does that have to do with the fact that I'm here? Like, why are you asking me about my mother? And I said, well, just humor me. Tell me about your mother. She's like, my mother's dead. And she spoke very badly about her mother. Her mother was a drug addict, smoker, and was diagnosed with high blood pressure. And then eventually she also didn't take her pills, got a stroke, and died, leaving her at a young age to help bring up her siblings. So I said to her, I said, I know it has nothing to do with this. I said, but humor me. I want to, explore something with you. And she's like, whatever. Like, how quick you gonna be? Because I gotta go, And she's like, I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna call 911, send me to the hospital like everybody else does, because that's what everybody else does. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I said, I have one more question. Do you miss your mother? The waterworks. And then I helped her see that it was her anger at her mother. All those years of being angry at her mother, and then feeling that being given blood pressure pills was a punishment. Why was she, a person that never smoked, never drank, took care of herself, did yoga? Why was she getting high blood pressure? Like, was this a punishment brought down from her family? This is what she really believed. So I helped her cry, send her up with social services, like to give her therapy. And I'm not kidding you, because I did the blood pressure myself. When the medical assistant did it, was 180 over 110. When I took it myself manually, 220 over 120. I let her cry. I shut off the light, gave her some water. I said, you know what? Let's redo your blood pressure. Let's see where it's at. I said, but before we take it, just letting you know that if you have it, because this is essential high blood pressure and you're going to need a pill, it's not because you're being punished. It just is. She understood. She felt better. Her whole demeanor changed. I took her blood pressure again. It was 118 over 80. I am not even kidding you. And I was like, oh, wow. So I gave her a blood pressure monitor. And then I was like, was this because she cried and let it go and now it's going to be okay? No, I gave her a blood pressure monitor. I saw this lady every single week at different times, different days of the week, to make sure for myself that she was okay. And she came back and then she thanked me. She's like, you asked me all these things. No one had ever asked me. And then at the moment I realized, like, it was her emotion and her psychological well-being that was affecting her body, which a lot of times that part is neglected. I know sometimes we have social services, we're like, oh, well, they can't afford the medication, that's why. But usually delving into what's going on at home on a deeper level. And the sad thing is that a lot of times we only get 15 minutes. So in 15 minutes, it's kind of hard to explore. But like the other doctor said, you know, I was in also a community health center for 20 plus years, and I was the one leaving very late. And yes, the pay is less, but the satisfaction is so much higher because you see someone actually changing and someone like actually opening up in the eyes and like, I never knew that, you know, and you see improvement in medical issues because it's important. So I was almost like, it was like a trial by basis, but then I realized like, oh my God, this is real. So I've adopted that. And that's what I do all the time. And I became the doctor that everybody who had a patient who didn't take their medication or who they were at a loss what to do with them for because of their attitude, they all came to me. And I became that doctor. And it was tough, but it's very rewarding when you see someone actually say, you know what, you're absolutely right. I am gonna, you know, stop the drinking or stop the smoking or stop doing any of those things that do affect their body. Everything is interrelated. You wrong in one aspect is gonna affect the other. It's finding where the problem is and helping find basically the cure for that, so that the ultimate problem, which is what brings him into the office, is resolved, which was her blood pressure. So yes, blood pressure, no more. Pressure me no more. So it was a different angle. It's my first one, so I wasn't sure if it was about patients or about myself, but you know, this is what I came up with. So
Well, that's wonderful.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's both. Really, I'll speak. I think it's both because just like Dr. Puthiyamadan and Dr. Sakdibel talked about them healing from the inside out, obviously you have that healing because you were able to see that pain in somebody else. So that's a really powerful thing to walk in and be able to see the whole patient. So thank you for reminding us of that and sharing that. And great job for your first story slam.
Thank you.
To all of you so far.
Thank you.
Up next is Dr. Solger. Sorry, I almost said it soldier.
No worries. So I guess I'll start it off with my approach to wellness. So to answer the question about an approach to wellness or what wellness means to me, there was a bit of soul searching that had to happen just to be able to organize my thoughts. As a resident, whether or not I'm feeling well is tied in with my identity as a doctor and what happens at work. And this has almost everything to do with the fact that as a resident, when you do the math, for 70 to 85% of the week, I spend about 65 to 75% of my waking hours commuting to work and being at work. If things aren't going well at work, then things aren't going well with the activity that I invest my most precious asset, which is my time. So with that math in mind, my approach to wellness is twofold. I like to think about it, my wellness as a cup that can be filled or emptied. I have 25 to 35% of my waking hours to invest in myself. I wake up most mornings and exercise for 45 minutes. I eat healthy throughout the day. My walk to work is about 10 minutes longer than if I were to take the train. So I usually walk the 1.5 miles to work. I found that it provides a silver lining buffer to my day. If my day at work is bad, that I can always fall back on, well, at least I worked out and ate healthy today. And not everyone can say that. Bad events happen at work, whether there's a mistake or a negative interaction. And when they happen, they pour less from my wellness cup when I take care of myself. The second way I try to improve my wellness is through more of an organizational lens, such as advocacy work or pushing for administrative changes at work. Every day at work, there are situations that have the potential to pour from my cup. These are things like workplace violence, abusive attendings, rude consultants, inefficient systems, or out-of-title work, such as having to place an IV or do manual phlebotomy or having to transport patients. An example of one of those things that had been pouring from my wellness cup when I started residency was that none of our code cards had labels on them, and no one seemed to have an idea as to where most of the supplies were located. During the codes, residents would rifle through the cards until they found what they needed, but it was incredibly frustrating as it just tended to add more chaos to our codes. When I initially mentioned that we should label the cards, I was poo-pooed because the nurses were supposed to know where everything was, but the nurses weren't showing up to the codes, and they usually didn't have the contents memorized when they did. After about 3 to 6 months of meetings and emails, the code cards were reorganized in a sensible manner and they were labeled. I remember running my first code after it happened, and when I asked for the epinephrine, one nurse had commented, "Oh, it's easy to find. You just have to look at the label in the drawer." And in that moment, when I saw a tangible benefit as a result of my labeling initiative, my cup filled and the chaos of labelless code cards stopped pouring my wellness cup out. I also act as a union representative, which also fills my cup by allowing me to have a louder voice to fix things that pour from it. By having a way to manipulate or influence my workspace, residency seems less daunting. We've been able to push our department heads and sometimes go around them to create policies that remove medicine residents from the nursing workflow. Little by little, we've been able to remove non-physician tasks from the list of things we're expected to do, and so we can focus on being good doctors. Each of these small wins improves my own wellness, but also I feel better knowing that I'm doing something for my colleagues' wellness as well. In the same vein, advocating for my patients fills my cup for similar reasons. I work at the county and state hospitals, so we really don't have much, and we take care of all patient population that doesn't have much either. One of the things that have been pouring from my cup was that we don't have adequate interpretation available for our Haitian Creole population, even though it's the second most commonly encountered language at our hospital. Every time I would take turns with an ED patient who'd been placed in a hallway chair, shouting into the receiver of my cell phone to communicate with an interpreter, I'd grow frustrated. What was worse is when these calls would drop, or we would add an extra 5 to 10 minutes just repeating ourselves because of the connectivity issues. These have been wellness pouring events. However, through our union and through the advocacy internship through NYACP, I was able to connect with government officials that also understood the importance of getting appropriate services for the population. We still don't have interpreters, but for the first time, we have people interested in looking for money to fund them. When my city council member wrote to my hospital CEO explaining that our current situation was inappropriate and a detriment to patient care, that was a cup-filling moment. Ultimately, well-being, as I see it, is the net result of my internal or individual efforts in combination with the external or more organizational variables. The time I spend working on my own physical well-being and the time I spend with loved ones makes me more resilient in the face of the organizational variables, which can be in flux on any given day or week. If I spent 2 hours collecting blood cultures on a day that a sick patient turns the corner and the unit got a brand new ultrasound, then maybe the net effect of that cup is like a wellness meniscus that really hasn't shifted too much. And I think that's kind of it for my story, but I hope you enjoyed my quick spiel on my understanding of wellness.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Silver. There was so much to learn in that, from taking care of yourself, like personally, like, you know, taking care of your body with nutrition and exercise, to advocating. And I love the thought of the cup, because sometimes, like, if you know that it can fill up, then you know that it's not the end when it's empty, right? Like, you know, it's that ebb and flow. So it's a really great way to look at it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Up next, we have Dr. Block.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to Amanda and Loretta for hosting this. I always look forward to it. So after 10 years as an attending, I finally did it. I took time for me. It seems like a simple task, but I was always afraid to do it. Before residency, I thought medical school was busy. There was always more to learn, more to study, more to read. During the 80-hour work weeks of residency, I was too busy to cook, sometimes too busy to sleep, too busy to do laundry. Thankfully, my husband cooked, did laundry for both of us, and he would have slept for me if he could have. I convinced myself life after residency would be less crazy. And it is. I work for simple hours. Sure, there are notes, phone calls, patients in crisis, emails, papers, and evaluations. There are meetings and requirements. What I hadn't really accounted for was the frenetic pace that comes with marriage, 3 kids, and a dog, with homework, activities, walks, meals, meltdowns, illnesses, car repairs, bills, and mortgage payments, aging parents and friends who get sick and want advice from their doctor friend, a husband who wants company, kids who expect me to read to them at bedtime. From 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., it's busy. And by 10 p.m., I'm exhausted and usually with work to finish and a house to clean up. And none of that time is really from me. It's a story I hear too often from my patients in primary care. And it wears on them and it burns people out. We see it every day. Burnout, depression, insomnia, poor eating habits, resentment, workaholism. It's all different manifestations of a similar process. And I see it particularly in women all the time. And so I realized I had the chance to follow in their footsteps or to carve my own path. I realized it wasn't so selfish to take some time for me, but it was investment in me. And so I realized if I wanted to carve out time, it had to be early. I started to set my alarm for 6:30, venturing outside in the cold and the rain to jog or to walk. I got music, podcasts, my dog when she's still quiet and tired, exercise, and a little of the outdoors. I get a little new lease on life before the day starts. I realized it's okay to take some of this time for just me. Sometimes, gasp, it doesn't happen in the morning, and I take the time for myself at night, even if it's to walk and read and talk on the phone. I feel like I'm role modeling for my kids, my family, and my patients who also have busy lives and often face additional barriers. Wellness starts with small changes. Mine just happens to be a small early change.
Love it. Thank you, Dr. Block. That is something that I find hard to do, get up in the morning to do it, but time is so important. And I'm like, thank you for reminding us to find it. And that it can be found even in that busy time. And for committing to yourself to do that. That's so important, to be your self advocate and making that commitment. So thank you for sharing that. Dr. Chu.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for all your amazing stories. I just wanted to start off by reading a poem that's pretty close to my heart. It's called You Wake the Dead to Life. It was written by Rumi and translated by Haleh Liza Ghaffori. You wake the dead to life, you fountain of grace, you fire in thickets of tangled thought. Today you arrived beaming with laughter, that swinging key that unlocks prison doors. You are hope's beating heart, you are a doorway to the sun. You are the one I seek and the one who seeks me, beginning and end. You greet need with generous hands, you flood us with spirit rising from the heart, lifting thought. Rare one, you review the pleasure of wisdom and practice. Beyond these, what is there but excuses and deceit? We lust after the afterlife, we stew over trinkets, we stage battles between black and white. Our ears are plugged with twisted delusions. You carry the cure. Silence, I'm in a hurry, leave the paper, break the pen, the cupbearer is here, jug in hand. Meet us in the land of insight, camped under ecstasy's flag. So this poem was written by Rumi as a poem of praise. The you in the poem refers to his really good friends. And so this poem combines two great sources of wellness for me, which is reading and my friends. And reading this poem made me think about all the friendships I've been fortunate enough to make during my medical training and have kept me grounded during all the stress and uncertainty of residency and the pandemic. And it's really just the small acts of love every day, just listening to me rant or about a tough or frustrating case, or inviting me over for Christmas dinner, and because we were working over the holidays. So I think this poem articulates beautifully the way that friendship or connections of any kind changes us. And for me, it's not always easy to find the right words to express your gratitude and your feelings. But then, you have poets who can do it for you, who wouldn't want to be called hope's beating heart. So it's a way for me to express my admiration, adoration to all my friends. And I'm humbled by the faith and love I've been given in return. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing both the poem. I thought you were going to leave me with the poem to decipher, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. That's a lot for me to do in a few minutes. But Dr. Chu, thank you for sharing what it means to you. Community is so important. I love how reading is important to you, but also that community. So it's like that alone time, but how important it is to be around other people who help fill our cup. Thank you for reminding us of the importance of friendship and community as we sit here on a membership organization call. So hopefully you guys feel that same community here. I think we're going to skip to Miss Braun, Meryl Braun.
Thank you. Good evening. My approach to wellness is integrated with my journey as an aspiring physician. It starts with getting a good night's rest, and that's what I did the first day I arrived to my accommodations on campus at medical school in Antigua and Barbuda. I went to sleep so that I could get 8.5 hours and wake up refreshed at 4 in the morning every day. And it probably won't surprise the audience that sleep may be hard to come by in our field. By the time a few lessons had gone by, and we reached the point where we learned about how important sleep was to memory formation and retention and small task completion, some of my colleagues were already sleep deprived. I was just speaking with one of my fellow students that I'm mentoring, and at our check-ins, I asked how she's sleeping and what are her stressors. And she laughs as she says, every time I get on the phone with you, Meryl, you ask me how was my sleep, and you make sure that I'm sleeping 8.5 hours, and I always do, because I always remember you asking me about that, and I'm doing so well. Being well rested allows me to also be present and being present allows me to connect to those around me. In school, it was other students and professors and all of the support staff that make the university run, and members of the community like the taxi drivers, store clerks, and the farmers at the market. We never stop learning, and there's always an opportunity to connect with someone and learn something from them. It's also very rewarding to be able to connect with people across cultures and languages. So I keep practicing and looking for new words and expressions in different languages so that I can connect with my colleagues and my patients and everybody who I might run into in daily life. Before I started medical school, I was educating Mexican immigrants in the community in Brooklyn about healthy living and living with chronic conditions such as diabetes. I did it all in Spanish. My colleagues get surprised when they hear how well I, a native New Yorker, speak Spanish. And then they ask me, what other languages do you speak? I invite the opportunity to see if I speak another language that they might know, or if we've traveled to a similar place, had some similar experiences of food or education. Connecting with people increases their wellness as much as it increases mine. And adding my new repertoire of skills as a medical student really amplifies this. Today, one of my patients was telling me about the computer science degree that he's pursuing, and he's got 4 courses left to complete his degree, and he can only use his mouth and his voice, no hands, no feet, to control the computer and devices that he uses to attain his goals. We talked about how I'm going to finish my clinical rotations by the end of this year and how much I love medicine. I was feeling so inspired that he, like my wonderful friend Devin, was going for his higher education and getting degrees, even though these gentlemen have to fight really hard sometimes to overcome difficulties to achieve them. And you know what this gentleman told me? He said that he's so inspired by me that he's going to keep going and make sure he finishes his degree. Another part of my wellness is eating the right way. Becoming a doctor and trying to be healthy, I must incorporate foods and supplements that help me to be well nourished and able to incorporate the knowledge that I'm acquiring. What I study and when I interact, I do so with intention. So it holds more meaning for me because I know that what I learned today may make the difference in at least one person's life sometime in the future. Next, it's self-care. I have the great support of my husband and close circle that I stay connected to during this journey. Sometimes it's just opening up a camera and being connected to my husband while we go about our daily lives, because he's back home in New York and I'm here in Florida doing my rotations. And so he'll be cooking or what have you, and I'll be studying on my computer with him just there next to me. Being connected and supported is a huge part of my self-care and prayer. And if my mind gets full, I take a look at nature to appreciate the beauty and the interactions of what I can see, hear, and feel all around me. If I can help somebody else to achieve that as well, I will try. There's one patient that was in the ICU, and when I came to visit her, well, she was a former nurse for many decades, and it was her turn to be cared for. She was on dialysis and ventilator support and was there for quite some time. It was at the point where she could open her eyes and blink at me to show her understanding when I told her that it was such a beautiful day. And right behind her was the most beautiful view of the Hudson River, the George Washington Bridge, and the green trees in Palisades Park behind it, and the blue sky. And while speaking that sentence, I realized that she could not see any of that because in her bed, she's facing into the ward. So that day I took my lunch break and I went to the stores around the neighborhood in Washington Heights, Manhattan, and I found 3 big beauty salon mirrors that could be held by hand or hung, and I brought them back to her room and positioned them so that she could watch that scenery. She did make a recovery and went back to her home and her family, and I have a feeling that part of her healing was being able to see that nature. So my approach to wellness boils down to eat, sleep, study, bathe. Eating well, sleeping well, studying with intention, and taking care of my body and soul. It makes my cup runneth over so that I may fill the cups of those around me. Thank you all for your stories as well.
Wow, thank you. What a beautiful gift you gave that patient to go get those mirrors. That's amazing. Thank you from her for doing that. And I think you said it perfectly. I thought the whole time you are an inspiration because of how you take care of yourself, and you can take care of yourself and take care of others and show others that it's possible. So thank you for all you give yourself and others. I am going to ask, there were 2 other storytellers on the list, and I want to see if they're in the audience and able to share. Dr. Eshrat or Dr. Verma, have you been able to join us? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. So I would like to open up the floor if anybody would like to unmute and share something from one of these stories that inspired you, share a comment for the storytellers. I welcome you to unmute. I'll read some stuff in the chat as well. Let's see. Oh my gosh, there's more than I thought in the chat. Oh, apparently we have a bunch of early morning exercisers. So if any of you are in the same area, you might be able to start a group on this. That's great. Shane, everybody, a lot of people love the wellness meniscus metaphor. That cup analogy seems to be pretty popular. And we did share the poem link. Dr. Chu did share that in the chat if you guys want to see that. There is a comment for Dr. Puthiamadan. I love that you mentioned that perfectionism was something that took away from wellness. So true. I battle that every day. And Dr. Macias, somebody had commented, what a victory getting through to the patient this way. So important to address the things you cannot see. And love the focus on patient wellness impacting your wellness.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to unmute and share any thoughts?
I do.
Okay.
I love the fact that, being able to take care of yourself while you're being a doctor. I mean, it's the last girl, that's Meryl, is that her name? The last one that's, yeah. It's a beautiful vision to have, and the fact that she's done so much and is at the beginning, like not working yet out in like the rest of us, it's just, it's beautiful. It kind of reminds me of me, and it's kind of like, there will be roadblocks, you know what I mean? And the thing is to keep on, because that's what brings you happiness, regardless of what everybody else thinks that you're crazy because you stay late or you take more patients than you want to. But it's good to have like your time. Like my time was always lunch. Nobody messes my lunchtime. And no patients in my lunch hour ever. It's just like, it's the time to recharge. So as long as you find your time to recharge so that you can go back and give more, because otherwise we do burn out. So finding our stuff. My stuff is writing poetry. So I write poetry, I feel better. So it's like, write it down on paper, and then it's like, okay, my frustration is gone. And then sometimes you read it later and like, did I write that? So it's beautiful how everybody has their thing, right? It's nice to hear, especially working 20 years already. Sometimes you encounter more people that are grumpy. Like, I hate the job. I can't wait to retire, and I don't care about anybody. I just want to, make my money and go home. So it's beautiful to hear like all these stories of how people like get across and either lead by example or actually do something at the workplace. So I love it. Thank you. I mean, it's my first one, so that's why I'm kind of talkative. But thank you very much, everyone. And to you for hosting us.
Thank you. And next time, next one, it might be poetry, I'm hearing. So if you want to share your poetry, it might fit.
Thank you. Thank you.
I saw on Neha, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm so honored to be here with a lot of physicians who are taking care of patients in the same place for 20 years in my early career. And it's nice to hear what you guys have learned over the past 20 years and try and take something from that and apply it to my life. So thank you so much for sharing.
And I just wanted to thank the ACP for taking on this topic. I've done this for a number of years. It's always great. It's usually around patients and staff. So it's nice that this year it was about us as the, as the healthcare workers. I think that's, equally important as, everything else that we do. We have to take care of ourselves. So I really like the emphasis that you and the opportunity you gave to us to talk about that for a little while.
Does anybody in the audience have anything that they would like to share for what they do for wellness, or something that they took away that they want to make that made an impact on them tonight?
I'd like to say something.
Absolutely.
Hi, everyone. I'll say, we go to AUA. I was invited by Meryl Braun. And so something I like to do, especially on this journey to medicine and on this journey of medicine, is something that Meryl touched on, and it's really trying to connect with patients. I often ask, or I like to ask patients, or I like to have encounters with patients that cause me to have to go home and do some research. Like I'll ask about their culture, or I'll ask about what they understand of certain things, or just allow them to speak. And often when you just allow patients to speak, you get to hear a lot. And sometimes I don't understand, or I don't know exactly what it is they're talking about. So I have to go home and research and get to learn more about people. And I think it's therapeutic because through the few encounters I have as a medical student with the patients, I feel like I'm getting to know so much more about the world. And I think that taking the patient experience for more than just what it is at that moment, if you're going to see a patient or you're consulting a patient on a specific service or whatever, but you take it to another level, it kind of adds meaning to what you're doing, and it makes it less of a job. And I think that in itself is very therapeutic for me.
Thank you for sharing.
I have a question for Dr. Solger. How do you say your last name?
Oh yeah, that's how you say it.
Okay, thanks. So I was really interested to hear you talk about what makes the cup go up, what makes the cup go down. And it was a really neat way of talking about all the sort of personal versus systems issues, and I wondered if you had a sense of which has greater influence on the cup and where the level is. Is it are the greater drainers the systems, or what do you think? Do you have a sense of that?
I think that the greater drainers are probably the systems. And I think that the greater pourers are probably the patients. I think that's probably been my experience, is that you hit like multiple frustrations throughout the day. And as other people were talking about their relationships that they had developed with patients, I think about probably the things that have had like the greatest impact in terms of like my experiences as a physician, and things that I would consider to be like wellness pouring, or I'm sorry, like wellness filling events. And it's like, the family members that I've hugged, or, the patients that have had kind of like, I've always said, like, as long as you get like 1 in 10 to 1 in 15 patients to say thank you, that's all I need. Because you have so many that are just kind of like treated like a transaction almost, but you have like the one person who takes a moment to like really appreciate you. And I think that's usually what I need. But then I like push a patient, then I push 3 people to CAT scan, and then, so it's all, and then maybe I didn't work out that day. So then it's like a greater drainer than had I worked out. But usually I feel like it's the systems that break me down, and then it's the patient that fill me out.
Thanks. It was a good story.
Okay, I think Amanda needed to jump off because, as indicated earlier, NYACP has several concurrent meetings this evening. So I'm going to jump in and try to be as enthusiastic as Amanda always is. So I just want to kind of share that this, as I said earlier too, this was my first story slam, and I absolutely loved the topic. I've kind of been introduced to the topic by ACP, and have held several webinars for members on well-being, heard the results of surveys on well-being, but this is really something very different, something very personal that each of you have shared with one another this evening. And it was very inspirational to me, and I'm sure it was to others as well. It's made me want to read more poetry. It's made me want to get back out to walking in the morning, my 3-mile walk that I've kind of gotten away from, probably due to laziness. I'd rather stay in bed the extra time than go out and walk, when I really do know that I feel so much better when I walk. So I think all of you guys gave me the inspiration to start that 3-mile walk again. And so I want to say thank you for that. So enough from me. Is there anybody else on that's not showing their face that would like to share a story or add a comment? You can do it without sharing, without without your video on. Okay, I see Dr. Masood. Please tell us what you have for us.
Hi, Loretta, and hi, everyone. So I used to work in a small private practice for a good 15 years. And then it became very difficult with insurance. So I took up work as a hospitalist. So I've been doing that 15 years now. So almost 30 years in practice. For self-care, I have developed several simple routines. Someone had mentioned about taking a lunch. A lot of times we don't have the luxury of even a half-hour lunch. But what I found is like a 2 or 3 minute break to go to a quiet place and just try like micro meditation. I'm not good at meditation at all. Find it very hard to focus on anything, but just to make myself aware of my breathing and, any pressure that I may feel in my chest and things like that, that maybe a difficult situation has provoked. So I find that helpful. And the other thing I do is, some of you may do this, like if I know that there is a quote unquote favorite patient, someone who's nice to talk to, and like you just have the positive energy between you and this person, then I try to visit that person at the end of the day, even if it's a second visit to the bedside. And that just kind of wraps up things for the day on just such a solid note that it makes you feel that, yes, life is good and it's something you can do again another day and another month, another year. So, and then I have a long drive home, so I just kind of work more on the positive interactions and learn from, anything that didn't go well, obviously. And I try not to listen to music on my way home. In the morning, I'll listen to podcasts and CME and all that. But that's kind of stuff I've developed in a hospital-based practice.
Thank you, Dr. Masood, for sharing. And it was wonderful to hear your voice. Would anyone else like to jump in? If so, feel free.
I'd like to say something if that's okay.
Of course.
First and foremost, thank you all for sharing your stories. I'm sorry I'm not sharing my screen, but I'm in study mode and I have like 37 flashcards in front of me. So, and it's just refreshing to hear people along their different paths along the way. I myself am a medical student. Actually, Meryl invited me as well. We don't go to the same school, but she is just an inspiration, and just, to hear her story. And then I also liked Dr. M. Hold on, let me see where she is. the one who spoke about writing poetry and, just letting her patient cry it out. That was really refreshing for me to hear. I myself like to write poetry. I'm avid about writing haikus. So it's going to be nice to take all these little snippets of different ideas of self-care and bring them with me forward. So thank you everyone for sharing. Dr. Moss, yes, thank you, Meryl.
Well, thank you so much for jumping in and sharing, and good luck with your studies. Anyone want to follow?
We have another contributor in the chat, Sunny Nguyen. He says, my approach to wellness are love and respect. Love and respect others brings me joys and wellness. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Couldn't have said it better myself. Any other takers?
I just want to say you're welcome. And also to say to all the medical students that you're already starting to take care of yourselves by even coming here today, even listening and, and then giving your point of view as well. So I think it's like welcome. It's like a great addition to the medical profession. So I can't wait to see what wonderful things you'll do when you actually start working. So thank you. It's refreshing.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, ACP, for the opportunity.
Absolutely. It really was such a lovely evening. And actually, this really was wellness for me. It just seemed to quiet you down and let you unwind as you listen to these great heartwarming stories, and know that you're not alone in these crazy hectic days. And really the importance of taking care of yourself, the value of time. It's been said, don't let time slip away from you. You'll never get it back. And that's so true. But it's really hard to live by that in a fast-paced world. So thank you all for being here. It was wonderful seeing all of you, hearing from all of you, and hopefully we'll get to do something again soon. So I'll give it one more try, or should we wrap it up? All right, I think I'll give you back 6 minutes of your time. Use it for wellness. And thank you, Dr. Block, for having us tonight and spearheading this session for us. And again, for all of you being with us tonight. So thank you. Have a good rest of the evening. And I hope you use it for wellness purposes.